Okay. Hi, Professor.
Is recording. Oh yeah, yeah. Hi, how are
Yes,
you?
it's recording. I'm okay.
So good.
So, thank you for taking the time out of your day to spend about 20 to 30 minutes with me to just talk about life and talk about you.
Hmm.
So I have just 10 questions for you. Some of them are kind of like two-parters, so maybe it's 12 questions, but
Got
still. Um, so to begin,
it. Hmm.
you're the professor at Berklee College of Music and guitarist, and you teach film scoring currently, but you are also a jazz guitarist, a tango guitarist, and you're also part of, you have your own band and you're part of other bands as well, and you continue to make music every day.
Hmm.
Um, so the first question is, you picked up playing the guitar at the age of 9 and have never really put it down since.
Uh-huh.
What is it about the guitar that keeps you playing it, and what is it about the guitar that prevents you from putting it down?
Oh man, that's an interesting question. I think each instrument has their own culture, right? It's interesting to see the type of people that play piano, and I don't want to be stereotypical, but the piano players are a type of person that I'm very familiar with because I've been fortunate to play with amazing piano players. Drummers are a different breed for sure. Trombone players, brass players, and things like that. I think the guitar um has it's not that it's more personal, but it's such a personal instrument. The guitar is almost like having a best friend. You know what I mean? It's something that you can embrace. It's something that it feels good to have, in your lap, that you can watch television and watch 4 hours of films and
Right.
play the guitar. You can bring it to your bed. You can play it in a sofa. You can play it in a concert. You can play it standing up, sitting down on the floor, whatever. So it's such a malleable and such a companion instrument. So to me, it was two things. One is that it was really hit me hard when my brother was 5 years older than me, and he one morning he starts playing this record by Jimi Hendrix, believe it or not, in Argentina, and I'm hearing these sounds, and I didn't know if I was still dreaming or what. It was amazing, and it just hit me hard. And from then on, I fell in love with Hendrix. I fell in love with Paco de Lucia, with the acoustic. I love the form. I love the just to have them around. The acoustic. I got it's like a guitar for every occasion. Then the 175 or 335 or telly or whatever. It's like it's such a um rooted instrument too. That's the thing that I like about the guitar too. The fact that you can play African music, you can play Latin music, you can play classical. Some of the Bach pieces written, the partitas, written for violin, they sound better on guitar. I'm sorry, Johann Sebastian, but they sound better on the guitar. You listen to John Williams, the Australian guitar player, or Julian Bream, or some of the other classical guitar players, and it sounds amazing. Some of the Bach pieces, Baroque music, is such a rooted instrument. So that's the thing. I think you don't you fall in love with the guitar. I think some people uh, hated the piano. They hated the piano, and then they found the piano again back in their 20s or whatever. Some people hated studying violin as a kid, and then they end up playing violin. There's a more love-hate relationship with other instruments. With the guitar, I think it's love, love. It's really a loving. I don't know. I mean, you're a guitar player, right? I mean,
I do play guitar.
yeah. So it's like it's it's like that. I'm you keep finding stuff. You keep finding stuff. Yeah.
It's true. Well, thank you. That was a lot more information than I had hoped,
I'm
and that was a
sorry.
really fantastic answer. No, it's fine. I'm glad that you feel comfortable opening up to me about things like that.
Oh yeah.
Um, Now you mentioned you are from Argentina.
Yes.
As an Argentine musician, so
Mhm.
you have grown up and witnessed tango and how it's evolved throughout the years. How it first rose to popularity in the early 19th century, to the tango nuevo, and
Yeah,
then
yeah,
the
yeah,
third
yeah.
wave that came out in the late 90s and the early 2000s. Do you feel like tango can still evolve? What is the next step for tango, in your
Yeah.
opinion?
Well, I mean, um, I'm old, but I'm not that old. You know what I mean? So the beginning of the 19th century, I
Yeah.
wasn't there for that. But the thing about the way I got to where I am right now is in a strange way, in a way, right? Because I as a musician from, I started playing in the late 60s, early 70s, and I was more of a rocker slash fusion jazz type of person. I was more a tango at the time when I grew up. It was the music of my parents, right? It was the music of the almost like the music of the military government to a certain degree. It was sort of some kind of like a um not a very progressive music, right? But I was always interested in Argentinian music and folklore, folk music from Argentina. I always love, and some of the more contemporary tango of Astor Piazzolla, as much as other composers. One of the people that blew my mind was this guy Rodolfo Mederos. Rodolfo Mederos is a bandoneon player. He's still alive, and he was a little younger than Piazzolla and those guys. And he was like a progressive tango rocker in a way. He had guitar, and my friend, a little older than me, 2, 3 years older than me, from school, was playing guitar with him. So when I went to see them, it was mind blowing. It was amazing. It was electric guitar. They had three bandoneons, the squeeze boxes, and it was with drums and everything. So it was a fusion thing. It was almost like watching progressive rock tango type of thing.
Oh,
And
wow.
blew my mind. My friend Tomas went to play with Astor Piazzolla, right? He went to move to France. He still lives in Paris,
Oh,
outside of
wow.
Paris. And then, basically, I took his job. Working as a 17-year-old kid. I was playing with this top. It was funny because we were playing rock festivals. You know, so we were playing with the big, like the Madison Square Garden of Buenos Aires, Luna Park, whatever, this giant, 12,000 people, whatever, and we're playing our tango, call it, I don't know, progressive tango, really, right? And some people, the rockers really like it. The young people, my people my age really love it. And so that was my connection. I started, it's almost like if you go into jazz and you start by listening to Miles Davis playing fusion, and then you go back in time. Education is funny. Sometimes it's not linear. You know what I mean? Education is something, it doesn't matter. Sometimes you grab the end of something and then you start going back and say, oh wow, this is great. And then you get to the 17th century by accident, almost, you know what I mean? Or to the beginning of the
Right.
20th. So that's how, I basically got into tango. And to answer your question, yes, I think tango, uh, I mean, you cannot restrict it so much into, okay, is this tango or is not tango, right? But there's a few revolutions that never happened in tango that happen in jazz, right? Um, for example, in jazz, there was at one point the I mean, you had the bebop, right? Great. And then you had sort of like the model, less is more revolution, Miles Davis kind of blue, that type of thing, cool jazz, things like that. And then jazz also had the electronics, the fusion, and all that. Tango had a little bit of that, but I think tango still could grow more by opening up their doors, as well, without losing, of course, the roots, right?
Right.
And going back to the guitar, to be honest with you, uh, in my personal journey or whatever, the guitar is key because the guitar was the first instrument of tango, right?
Oh, really?
Before they had the big orchestra. It's like for jazz, the blues. The first instrument in jazz is the guitar, is the blues. If you don't know how to play blues, if you cannot play the blues, you cannot play a jazz standard.
Ah,
You know what
right.
I mean?
Yes.
You have to, even when you listen to Monk, to Miles, to Coltrane, whatever, they're playing the blues. So the guitar is such a rooted instrument that is the root of so many musics and is the root of Argentinian folkloric music, of Latin American folkloric music. And is the first instrument, if you go back to Carlos Gardel in the beginning of 19, and even before Gardel, in the beginning of the 1900s, the 20th century, you would see a singer singing with three guitar players accompanying,
Right.
not an orchestra. Then later on, the Germans brought the bandoneon, right? The bandoneon became the voice of tango, but that was after, in a way. So in a
Right.
way, the future lays in the past. You know what I mean? So
Yes.
many times, if you want to look at the future, what is the future of jazz? Go back to the roots. What is the future, to a certain degree? You can even connect rap music to almost tribal music of just percussion and voice, right?
Right.
So it's almost like the future is always connected. You know, sometimes the problem is the people in the middle. You know what I mean? The two extremes are always moving forward. So if you keep the roots of the beginning, in this case, could be the guitar, the bandoneon. It used to be guitar, flute or clarinet, and a singer, and sometimes three guitar players. So I do think that I like to believe that music, not only tango, but any kind of music, always has a future. And how to look into the future is always go back a few steps and try to reinvent something. You know, you know what I mean?
Yes.
The future is not making it weird. The future is reinventing or looking at something that happened in the past with a different perspective.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. Earlier you mentioned something about how education is very interesting, how the newer things hang on to the older things and etc. So this actually brings me to my next question is you're very known for being very inclusive to all of your students who are also old, some of them are young, some of them are experienced, some of them are inexperienced, some of them are uh, grew up in America with the blues. Some of them have grown up outside of the blues context. And you have a very keen interest in education, as well as for children. And I think I read somewhere that you sent your daughter to Montessori school.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you even
Are you a Montessori child or not?
no,
No.
I'm an Asian child.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
and and you eventually composed music for and wrote songs for Sesame Street and
Oh, yeah.
Arthur, which are two of the biggest children's franchises.
Yeah.
Was your approach to composition for these children programs any different than when you compose for quote unquote grown up programs?
Oh man, I tell you, I missed that gig so much. That was the funnest gig. Um, to me, I wish it was. I was writing music, some Arthur, some Sesame Street, and then mostly there was another series that I wrote for like 10 years, which was a postcard. It was called Postcard
Postcards from Buster?
from Buster, and he was the
Yes.
best friend of Arthur. So,
Yes.
so it was a great premise. It was basically the premise of the show was that this kid, Buster, his father is a pilot, and there's this band that is sort of like a makeup band, but it's a band that has a girl from Puerto Rico. The guy was American, then the drummer was African American girl. The drummer was based on the character of she's the now the wife of Santana. I can't think of her name. It's a real drummer. She's so the character was based on this drummer. It's a very famous drummer, female drummer, African American. I can't think of her name right now.
Is it Deborah Santana?
I think so. No,
Or is it his more recent wife, Cindy
Reese.
Blackman?
Yeah, Cindy Blackman used to play drums with I think even with Prince and people like that. I mean, she was
Oh wow.
great player, amazing player. So what I'm saying is that it was an inclusive band, and it was the funnest gig. It was very inclusive. Was about just half documentary, half animation. I had to write songs. Each show had 2 songs, and then I had to write score as well. Right, funnest gig. Never look down on the kids. In a way, my how you call it, my template or was, believe it or not, was the Beatles. The Beatles were writing kid songs, you know what I mean, in a way, and more, right?
Right.
But the kids fall in love with the Beatles without knowing that the harmonies were complicated, songs were hard to sing. We just learned them. So it was fun in that sense, that not making it silly, not making it silly could be, but not making it stupid. You know what I mean? Not looking down on the kids, because if you write a nice melody, you can accompany it with some chords, sections, whatever, and the kids will love it. It was a really good gig. The highlight of it was that my daughter was of the age of the kids that were watching the show. So I would write a little song. I would play it to my daughter first. She was my audience, and if she liked it, then okay, we'll print it. We go, and then we printed, we recorded the whole thing, and then it was funny, that she would sit on television. Oh, that's the song that you showed me, whatever, So it was really cool that way. So I don't know if I'm going back to your question, but for me, writing music for kids, it was not really writing music for kids. It was writing music that was fun, and there was and was presented to kids, but I think they can, I do think that they can take a lot more than sometimes other shows allow them to take. Like my daughter, for example, I would hate, I was never into Barney or those type of more, really shows that sort of like try to minimize the use of brain power or minimize, you know what I mean? Or
Yes.
just look down on kids, like say, oh, just they can
You know,
sing. Yeah, yeah.
Wynton Marsalis used to say that Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood was the most innovative jazz program in America at the time because it was live jazz music the whole time. It was always new,
You got
never the same recording over and over again. It was always something new.
you got it. Yeah.
So yeah, no, I appreciate that. That's
I highly recommend it. I think there's one of the things that uh, even to a certain degree, for any musician to have the chance at some point in your life to play dance music, you
dance
know,
music.
could be salsa, could be anything. If you have to be able to make people move, even if you're gonna play concert music, even
Yeah,
if you're gonna play the rest of your life, do film music or concert music, it's important to know that okay, there's 1,000 people there dancing, moving for 5 hours, and you're playing with the band or you're playing by yourself or whatever, and you're making them move. That's a great experience. That's a great. And the same thing with the kids. If you can write some simple but intelligent, kids tunes, um, that's that's a good little school, in itself. Yeah,
I agree.
yeah, I'm glad.
I have another question. This one's well, I mean, we're talking about composition here. One of the key tenets of screen scoring is to write music that is felt rather than heard. How does your composition style achieve that balance?
Interesting. Yeah, that's an interesting question because uh, I'm of the belief that each project, and even within that project, each project is a different animal. So in other words, the rules that apply to one movie or one project or one television show or one play or whatever you're writing music for, it may not apply for the next one, right?
Yeah.
So in a way, I'm not the type of person that will make a generalization. I think one of the things that is important always is sort of like visualization. If you write something with a theme or with a particular feel or thinking about something, or sometimes could be you're writing and you don't realize that you were thinking about something very specific, but write something from a almost cinematic point of view, which means trying to tell a story, even if it's no story, even if it's just a piece of music that is never going to have a movie, but try to have that cinematic, programmatic, and storytelling aspect in your music. I think the great I mean, all great composers have that. I mean, in many ways, they're they're telling their story in any particular style. You know what I mean? Could be classical, could be romantic, could be jazz, could be anything. There's a story behind. Sometimes in instrumental music, there's a story behind that maybe doesn't match exactly what the people are getting, but you feel that there's a story behind. So when you relate to storytellers, like film makers or directors or writers or theater people from the theater, people like that, even dancers, choreographers, it's easier to find that common ground. And instead of talking about dance or movie and music, you talk about the storytelling. What is the story? What is the right? And the story doesn't need to be very clear. What I mean. There's stories and stories. There's some stories that are not that lineal or that that clear,
Right.
but that's the key of collaboration in my opinion, to be able to speak like a common language of um of feeling and storytelling, right? You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of stories, let's talk about your story. Um, since you graduated from Berkeley in '84,
Oh, shoot.
uh,
How do you know this stuff?
you you participated in a long list of productions, and just to name a few, from TV series for Telemundo, National Geographic, Discovery Channel, PBS, to the Boston Ballet, to children's programs like Postcards from Buster and Sesame Street, to major production films like Next Stop Wonderland, Home Again, and Tetro, all the while still playing guitar for films and as a part of the Pablo Ziegler Trio and for your own quartet and quintet. And you released an album as recently as 2021. Um, Among all those productions you worked on, whether I've mentioned them or not, which one was the one that you feel has changed your view on your personal life?
Oh man, wow, interesting. I think it's different. I don't know. It's almost like different chapters of your life. I think that I mean, I never reach any kind of like stardom type of, what I mean. Like but I'm just happy to know that for many years I've been doing music. And within that there's different chapters. The thing that is the common denominator in everything that you're saying is the fact that uh, I always try to keep writing, right? I learn. I think the key for my thing is being always learn something new and use it. Learn something new and write something new. Yeah.
Yes.
Um, so so in that sense, the early days was more my life changed by listening to Hendrix and the Beatles, whatever, those type of things, and learning from that and trying to emulate that and having my own band and the whole thing. One guy I mentioned before, Rodolfo Mederos, was a pivotal thing in Argentina because thanks to him, I was able to, before I came to this country, I was able to already experience what was to record an album, to play even to play in a movie score, which we did, to play in front of like 15,000 people, whatever, 10,000 people, and to have a professional life. So then when you come to Berkeley, you're a student, but you also have that in your back, you have that experience, right? Then for me coming to Berkeley, studying, some of the people here at Berkeley was pivotal thing. And then going almost as an accident, going into film scoring was also pivotal, and that was in the early 90s, right? Um, and it was pivotal because it was a life-changing moment, because um it was not about the guitar, it was not about playing scales or fast or solos or whatever. It was about the concept. It was about supporting the so there's different moments in my life. At a different point, I almost went back. When I started playing with Pablo Ziegler, for me it was almost like going back to my what I was doing when I was 17, 18, playing with Rodolfo, which was the contemporary tango, pushing the boundaries of the music from my country, and that still is, but it was at that point a very important thing, because we were playing this contemporary Argentinian music and we're playing in Korea, we're playing in Jakarta, we're playing in Tokyo, we're playing in Macau, we're playing in Italy, we're playing all over the world. We're almost like ambassadors of our own culture, which is a very interesting thing, to to do. So there's not one particular thing. Then the teaching thing, also, it was a pivotal thing, because teaching is part of the growing of being a musician, right? Playing and teaching, performing and teaching, producing and teaching is the same thing. It's almost the same thing. Not all great musicians are good teachers, but in general, if you look deep into it and you're willing to share your experience, you can become a teacher. It's part of the legacy. It's part of it's the same thing I was saying about the guitar. It's an amazing tradition, where you can connect with amazing human beings, and also it's a tradition of beauty, and peace, in a way, of harmony. You know what I mean? It's not a tradition. We never killed anyone with a guitar, or playing a bad chord, like playing. That doesn't kill anybody.
No.
Even at some point, the Congress or politicians were trying to blame rock and roll music or rap or whatever. The lyrics of rap are killing our youth, or what. That's not killing what is killing your youth is the politicians. It's not the music. The music is not killing anybody. Music is never going to kill anybody. It could influence you in a good way in general, right? And it could bring you together as a community. But I mean, is this answering your question? I think sometimes I have the tendency to like go into my own thing.
No, it's I mean, I'm getting an insight into you as a musician, the professor, the man, the myth. So
Mhm.
this is really good.
What was the original question? Can I?
Has any of the productions you worked on changed your views on life?
Yeah, I mean, as you can see, is a longer life, right? So it's not going to be one thing. It's going to be, that early contact with music, the early contact with my own traditional Argentinian or self or whatever, and then it's going to be the Berkeley experience. It's going to be the film composing experience, and then a circular thing going back to the modern tango 30 years later and coming back to Berkeley 26 years after I graduated, which is a chunk of time, so it's sort of cyclical, yeah.
So I'm noticing you have a poster in the back there. Um,
Yeah.
so your first major production film work was for composing music on Next Stop Wonderland, a film whose soundtrack was interspersed with the music of bossa nova from Carlos Jobim, Arto Lindsay, and Babel Gilberto.
Mhm.
What was going through your mind as you composed for your first major production film, and did having firsthand experience living in Boston affect your composition choices?
Yeah, I mean, it was a very organic, believe it or not, progression, because I knew the filmmaker, was actually someone that was living here at the time, Brad Anderson, and we had work. He was also an editor, a television editor, and we had work in another a documentary series right here in Boston. And then he's doing this independent film, that was the first version of the original version of Next Stop Wonderland, and they needed a band for there's a scene, a party scene, and he calls me, hey, I know you have a band, come over and we need you to play some music, some bossa nova, whatever. And we played, and then they had the shooting of It's one of the parts of the movie. And then after that, I said to Brad, I said, listen, man, I write music for documentaries and for independent films and things like that. So I could write the music for you. And then he had an audition. He auditioned other people. Basically the audition was to score like 5 minutes of the film, right? Which some people do that. Sometimes it's not only about sending your material, but sometimes they send you a little clip and say, let me see what you do with that, right? It's a good way of trying composers. So he really liked what I was doing. Actually, as a matter of fact, it's one of those things where, it's true what they say. You just gotta be ready. You don't know where it's gonna come from, right? As a temp score, Brad actually had one of my favorite pieces in that Baden-Powell used to play. Baden-Powell, Brazilian guitar player that was right? Beautiful piece. He had that as a temp score, which happened to be one of my favorite pieces. So here I am. I've been listening to this piece all my life, right? It's a beautiful guitar piece, and I have to write something that is original, but is as, okay as that piece. Of course, it's never going to be the genius of Baden-Powell, but I wrote something, for the theme, I wrote, well, whatever, right? So it's sort of like, it's not similar, but it's the same style and has the same vibe. Let's put it that way, right? So what I mean by that is that these things don't happen overnight, right? And then what you are doing, what all the kids at Berkeley, what we are all doing, is getting ready. So when something becomes a possibility, you can jump on, and you don't have to learn. They're not gonna pay you to learn how to write music. You gotta be doing it before, right? So in that way, it was a cool experience, because I was able to write the music that I love. The Brazilian music is something that I've been playing all my life, and it's very. I have family living in Sao Paulo, Brazil, and stuff,
wow.
and I is something that very close to me as well. And the Brazilian music in that movie in particular was not only the music, but was also the character of the father, right? The father was absent, and the music, it sort of like took the space that the father was not taking in the movie. So it had a dramatic element as well, right? So so basically, that movie, that was an independent movie, we went to Sundance. It became a Miramax film, which was, Harvey Weinstein back then, and it became a more of a studio movie. We had to recut it. We ended up rescoring it like 6 different times. The cool thing for me was that they didn't, it was still me doing the rescoring. So that was good. At that point, I never moved to Los Angeles. At that point, it would have been maybe a smart thing to do, to move to Los Angeles, but for other reasons, I was not able to do that at the moment, and that's why, I mean, I never scored many feature films. I was always doing some independent films, children programming, documentaries and things of that sort. Yeah.
That's so cool. Let's see where we are now. Wow, can you believe it? We've already done 6 questions.
Oh shoot, man.
So
I keep it shorter. I keep it shorter.
no, it's okay. So in 2018, um, you received a Grammy
Okay.
as one third of the Pablo Ziegler trio, of which you have been a part for over 20 years. How did you begin working for Mr. Pablo Ziegler, and what is the secret to maintaining such a long functioning relationship? Oh, sorry, hold on.
Got you, got you. Uh, that's a good question. Well, as I say to you, I mean, one of the weird things that happened in my life is that even though I was more into jazz, rock, and progressive music as a kid, as well as Argentinian music and Latin American music, Brazilian, and the whole thing. My first real professional gig is with this bandoneon player Rodolfo Mederos, and we were doing a progressive. If you're gonna put a name, was progressive tango. So in 1998 or 97 or something like that, before, I don't know, this is before your time, my friend, my daughter was not even born. Pablo was still in Buenos Aires. He had played with Piazzolla for many, many years with the mythical Piazzolla Quintet. They were touring the world. I used to go see them all the time. Amazing quintet. And Pablo was the guy. Pablo was the in that group. He was improviser. He was the one who was making the thing current and young and alive. The other ones were sort of like bringing the tradition, and Piazzolla was the genius. Piazzolla was like Miles in that sense. So then Piazzolla was still alive, but Pablo was doing his own thing, and he decided to put a band together in New York because he wanted to go international. And let me tell Iris, do you mind? I'm going to tell Iris to come back in a minute. Yep. Hey, Iris. Can you hear me? Are you there?
Hello?
Yeah. Do you mind coming back in, like, give me another 20 minutes or so? Yeah.
Yeah, that works.
Yeah, we're still working on this. Thank you.
I don't mind if Iris sits in.
It's okay. Yeah, I can I can come back. I don't mind.
Whatever you got is your show, Andrew.
Oh, so Iris, I'm interviewing the professor for the professional development seminar. And so I'm asking some questions about his life. If the professor doesn't mind, we could have an audience member.
Oh man, that's crazy. Iris, but it's gonna, how much is a ticket? Okay, no, thank you. Whatever, you have other stuff to do, go ahead, but whatever.
Yeah,
I'm fine.
I appreciate the offer, but I think I will let y'all have at it, and I'll be back in like 20-ish minutes or so.
Okay, thank you so much.
See you then.
All right, I'll see you. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Let me see.
So we were talking about how do we I got involved with Pablo, and how. Yes. So as I was saying before, it's sort of like the beginnings touch with the beginnings come back, always. It's yes. It's almost like the nucleus of who you are, and then you got some explosion, some big bang, whatever. And then at some point you go back to this thing, and then it creates another explosion. So for me to, when Pablo moved to New York, and for me to start playing with him, was almost like going back to the stuff that I was doing when I was 17 and 18, but now with a different mind, right? And at a different level. If we were playing rock concerts in the mid 70s in Argentina, now we were playing Carnegie Hall, and we were playing Royal Albert Hall and all that stuff. So the key at the end of the day, the key is always the music and respect. I respect the guy. I mean, Pablo is a major influence, right? And is a major pillar in that style of music, right? And in Argentinian music, maybe not as recognized as it should be, even though we are, technically speaking, we're the only people from Argentina that won a Grammy in that category.
Oh, wow.
Astor Piazzolla was nominated. One of his songs was nominated for a Grammy, but Astor never won a Grammy.
Wow.
There's another amazing pianist, Leo Genovese, who was the pianist with Esperanza Spalding, and he recorded an album with Wayne Shorter recently that just won a Grammy for best improvised solo, right?
Wow.
So there's not a lot of Argentinians that won Grammys in history of the Grammys.
Well, congratulations.
So, yeah, thank you.
You did it.
We did it. And the thing that, and I'll be honest with you, the record itself is almost like it's almost like a statement, like a manifesto, like a statement, in the sense that it was one show recorded live on a 2-track from beginning to end. The whole record is a live record where there is no mixing, really. There is mastering. There's no tune. We didn't have two options. It was not like one of those live records where you have 12 concerts and that's the way to do a live record. Do a tour of 12 concerts and then you choose the best from the 12 concerts. It was one concert.
Wow.
The order of the record is the order of the show. Every note we played that night, it was. So I think it's an interesting fact that captured the attention of some people, right? At a time where Pro Tools, I don't need how to, I can go one note at a time. Put it on Pro Tools, mix it, edit it, play it at any speed I want, and I could make it sound like I was an amazing piano player, So at a time when you can actually edit music to the minimum, to have an award like this go to a project that is just totally the opposite. It's almost going back to the recordings that they were doing in the early 20th century. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I think the key is the other key is like we don't see each other that much, No, it's true. I mean, we are always busy doing other stuff. So I'm gonna do a few concerts with them in a month or so.
Oh wow!
And I really miss these guys. We all every time we get together, it's like, oh man, where were you? So it's like it's very fresh. It's crazy to think that I started rehearsing with him before my daughter was born, and she's going to be 25 now. So it's been 26 years of playing these tunes, playing all over the world, playing with. So the cool thing with Pablo also is that opened doors to perform with so many great players. We did this project called Tango Meets Jazz. We were able to play with Branford Marsalis, Randy Brecker, with Kenny Garrett, Paquito de Rivera, so many amazing players, Gary Burton, so many Joe. So many amazing players. So what I'm saying is that you gotta keep it alive, and with respect and knowing that nobody's perfect. It's like a family, sometimes we got to a point where sometimes it's like we're yelling at each other, and then and then we're best friends again. You know what I mean?
So throughout this interview, you've been mentioning, um, I'm sorry. Throughout the interview, you've been mentioning the end becomes the beginning, and
Yeah.
going to the future, you have to go back to the past, and
Uh-huh.
how things of the past keep coming back, and you keep coming back to it. And this actually leads into my next question because, for me, I personally believe that we're all subconsciously striving to become the person that we needed the most when we were growing up. Do
Oh, wow.
you ever find yourself becoming that person that you needed the most when you were growing up?
Oh, man, that's an interesting question. Wow. That's a I'm not sure. I wish, I don't know. I mean, I wish I was smarter and wiser,
Well,
But
perhaps
I
you've
guess
already become the person that you've always
I
needed.
don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I don't. Uh, it's still emotion. You know what I mean? Everything is emotion, and sometimes it feels. It's not. Again, I don't believe in this linear thing. I don't think even age or music or knowledge or education. Sometimes you could start from the end. So many examples of that. You start from the end and you discover the beginning, right? It could be, it could be film music, it could be composition, it could be technology, it could be anything. You have to start from somewhere, and then you gotta go, step forward, and you gotta go back to learn where it came from, right? So I'm not sure about. I still don't see myself, like in the sense of that of saying I became the person who. I also heard. I think David Bowie used to say, like, growing up is the greatest thing about growing older or growing up is like you finally become the person that you were supposed to be, right? Which is a different way of saying what you're saying, right? And I guess I've been doing that for a while, trying to be the person that I'm. But at the same time, as a living creature of any kind, right? You keep growing. I mean, these things keep changing. It is, if it's not Cubase, it's going to be a new, three VR. Who knows? Something that is going to keep you growing, right, at your own speed. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
Does that make
awesome.
sense? Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Okay. But it's
I,
that's who did you is that a an observation that uh you read somewhere, or is it an observation that you develop
th-
yourself? I
it
think
was an observation I've made
yeah.
personally. I found that I mean, it's like anytime we make music, we're making music that we want to hear, and it's just the things that that we feel like is missing from our lives. And I wonder if like our purpose and our growth in life is a more larger thing that we don't really think about.
I'm a true believer of what you're saying, in the sense that we do, especially as composers, uh if we are successful at doing it, not successful in terms of popularity or money or whatever, but if you're successful at doing it, we end up writing the music that is not there, but that we want to hear, right?
Right.
That we are and that we want to hear. And that music, and then at the same time, the contradiction is that we don't make anything new, right? In other words, that's why it's important to go back, because nobody all the masters, they learn from other masters, and we are only trying to, and sometimes the key is like you're gonna fuse whatever. It could be flamenco with tango, with electronica, with jazz, with Jimi Hendrix, with who knows what, and then you come up with a new stew, a new salsa, a new sauce that that is reminiscent of other things, but is its own thing, right?
Right.
And it's something that you needed to create, to feel that moment, that place that nobody was, maybe in your opinion, feeling. And in that process, there's a whole bunch of people that are going to say, oh, look at this. This is what I've been waiting for,
Right.
It's interesting. Well, Andrew, it's a pleasure talking to you, man.
Oh, I still have two questions, but
Okay,
I'll I'll
no,
I'll
go ahead.
fast forward to the very last question then.
No. Go for it. I don't care.
Oh, okay. So your musical philosophy is on being the complete musician.
Uh-huh.
So my question is, what does this mean, and has this definition of the complete musician changed throughout the years with new tech,
Yeah.
new music consumption patterns, new idioms, and also just post-pandemic life?
Yeah, I mean, I don't, that's, it's almost, was it in class today or the other day? Like, that somebody, we were giving feedback to some of the projects, right? And I think somebody said, oh, that's perfect. I don't have anything bad to say about, it's not, I don't have any improvement. And I think there's the thing about music or any kind of art form, sports could be similar in that way, and in the sense that you have you have some kind of a mentorship, or you have some kind of a direction, right? And my goal will be to be able to be a complete musician, to be able to play an instrument, to write, to read, to write for a small ensemble, for orchestra, for film, for an opera, for this and that. I think they be able to manipulate the language of music, and to, as much as is possible, or as much as time allows you to do, knowing that nobody is going to master this giant, vocation, this giant monster. The
Right.
music you can, I mean, you could be the best classical composer, and you don't know anything about African music, you know what I mean, or whatever.
Right.
So it's always, the key thing is jumping and looking at the other door, like saying, okay, I never listened to, I was even the other day, I'm teaching this class about, how to use different musics from different parts of the planet to score a film. And I think you will enjoy that class,
I think I would.
very much. Um, and I started listening to this like folkloric Korean. It's really like, you listen to that stuff and it sounds avant-garde, for my ears, so it's like I'm trying to, try to start like analyzing the scales and what are they doing with the rhythm, what's going on, and using your own ears and your own understanding of music to look into other traditions, other, you know yeah. Does that
So,
answer the question? Yeah.
yes, I think it does.
Yeah.
I mean, I think what you're saying is that we're constantly moving forward. So
We're constantly moving forward, and the idea, the concept of the complete musician is concept. It's almost like saying, okay, I want to play football like Maradona, or I want to be as good as Gandhi, whatever. You're never gonna be. You it's just a gives you a direction, right?
Yeah.
And it involves everything. It involves playing, technology, production, composition, orchestration, the whole thing.
Yes. Okay. So final question, and I think we've gotten to like a good mental space where we talked about the beginning, the end, how they relate, how the meaning of the complete musician is ever changing. So my question to you is, what is next for the composer, the guitarist, the man, the myth, the legend, Claudio Ragazzi?
Well, my next project is I'm working on something that is sort of like the last record we did with my quartet, but it's like it's an orchestral piece, that features the quartet. So I have two things in my mind. One is the going more towards a larger ensemble, and exploring more that within my own, style of music. And then the other one is also starting to think of other types of collaboration that could involve as well electronic or different types of um, of forms. Going back to the electric, to make more noise. To make more not volume, but to create sonorities that might not be the sonorities you find only in orchestral or acoustic instruments, right?
Yes. Awesome. Thank you so much for your time. I know I said 20 to 30 minutes, but it ended up being a little bit longer.
I know.
Um,
Yeah.
please tell Iris when she gets back in the room that I'm very grateful that she gave up some of her time.
Great. Thank you so
And
much.
I'll see you after the break.
See you after the break. I love to, if it's okay with you, I love to eventually, see how this assignment went.
Oh, absolutely. I'll follow up with you and let you know if I got 100 or not. I think I'll get 100. You gave me some really great answers.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Andrew, for thinking of me, and have a safe time, have a safe break. Looking forward to keep working together on this thing. Yeah.
Thank you.
On this
Thank
class.
you.
Okay.
Take care.
You will. Ciao,
Bye-bye.
ciao.
Bye.